Congressman Mark Green joining us. Let's get right to the Newsmaker Hotline. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us. Of course, tough days these days for our ally Israel. I know that, I believe, is it today that members of Congress, you're going to be getting some briefings on exactly what's going on. What is the very latest from your standpoint? I know that you're privy to information that, some other folks may not be.
Yeah, sure. Well, what's probably my best source has been my friends in the IDF from when I was in the Army. They text me videos, and text me, honestly and tragically, the body count. It's just been horrible what's happened there. But it just shows, one, how, horrible Hamas is. I mean, it's like a horror movie, but it's not. It's real. And then, of course, how truly an enemy of the United States and the West and freedom Iran is. And the problem is Democrats, liberals just don't get that. They see the law enforcement in our country as the bad guy and street the criminals. They cut a deal with Iran, and I understand the Khashoggi thing and how unpalatable and that is, but then we stiff arm Saudi Arabia, make friends with Iran, and we get this. So it's just, this situation has occurred because of the failure of our president and because, unfortunately, failure of our intelligence services. One
of the things that I did point this out yesterday, you had the Biden administration falling all over themselves, talking about how bad Iran is and acknowledging the relationship between Iran and Hamas. And every time I was playing that audio or watching it on TV over the weekend, I'm screaming at the television, then why have we not been enforcing the sanctions against Iran? Why did we give them $6.5 billion? Anything we do to give Iran money or lift the sanctions makes them stronger, which in effect makes Hamas stronger. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that are saying that if that money, because the Biden administration is saying, well, that $6.5 billion has not been spent yet. Why hasn't the Biden administration then pulled that money back, given the fact that the Wall Street Journal has been reporting that Iran was helping facilitate this attack with Hamas?
Yeah, we very clearly, Hamas did not pull this off without millions of dollars and incredible training and synchronization. When you think of the command and control of synchronizing an attack like that, it takes something far more than Hamas has ever done in the past. So, Iran was clearly involved. Now, the president did far more with the lifting of the sanctions in terms of money. They're now exporting well over 1 million barrels of oil a day. When Trump was in, it was like 80,000. So the billions of dollars have flown into their coffers has been more from the sanctions, but clearly the whatever it was, I think it was 6.4 or something. That money allows them to shift accounts, right? So whatever they were going to do for hospitals in Iran, this is supposedly humanitarian use. Well, they just take that money from there and put it back into Hamas. So, yeah. And Hezbollah. Iran has created this axis from Yemen, Iran, Iraq, Syria into Lebanon, and it's necessitated these agreements between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and that's what the president was working to do. But unfortunately, I think that's been destroyed.
So talk about, Congressman Mark Green joining us, talk about the deal with Saudi Arabia and the normalization of their relationship with Israel, because this was something that President Biden was trying to work on, and this is something that Hamas and others say that was the inspiration for this attack to try to thwart that deal. Talk a little bit about what that deal entailed and why that would be a threat to, Iran and Hamas and so forth.
Well, it was about balance of power in the region, right? And again, we have this bipolar Sunni Shia axis that's forming, and Israel kind of falls into the Sunni axis with Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan, right? So, it's sort of evolving into this bipolar situation, which is really very dangerous. But because of the president's initiatives when he first got into office, we stopped sending military assistance to Saudi Arabia. And so Saudi Arabia is screaming. I mean, I was just recently in Saudi Arabia. They were looking to buy drones from China, and we're like, no, please don't do this. Well, get your president to do something. But the president was leveraging all of that to get a deal with Israel, I think, for his own legacy as much as stability in the region. But, they were close. I mean, and the details of the deal, I don't necessarily want to go into, but military hardware was clearly part of it. But with this happening now, Israel has to respond a certain way or they're going to be attacked ad nauseum. So this will require them to go do things in Gaza that will make a lot of people in Saudi Arabia not supportive of their crown prince should they not, should they support Israel. So this is going to put that deal probably maybe a decade. I don't know how long, but it's going to be years before that deal's an option again.
One of the things as we all talk about this, one of the questions is what is the appropriate response for America? Because we had Lindsey Graham and some of these other folks out there that are saying, well, what we need to do is, take out Iran's ability to pump oil. We have other people saying we need to, take out whatever, they're working on nuclear capabilities. We need to take that out as well. Other people like Tucker Carlson and Rand Paul are saying, no, that's not the right answer. So what would be an appropriate response be for America? There does seem to be a lot of debate out there amongst, conservatives, Republicans. There's a number of different options on the table. What say you?
Well, I think in terms of the hostages, we tell Hamas to bring American citizens back, or we go in and we get them. And we kill as many Hamas people as we have to in order to get Americans out. You don't leave Americans stranded. Now, granted, that's not the way Joe Biden thinks. He left thousands of citizens behind enemy lines in Afghanistan. But that in and of itself is like slapping a bad guy in the face. Weakness is provocation, right? So we have to reverse his way of thinking and go back to the American way of thinking. And as if you take Americans, we're coming after you. And so I think with regards to Hamas, that's the right action. In terms of Iran, I would say the maximum pressure campaign that Trump put on was fantastic. I mean, it crushed their economy. And we shot down, and he when they shot a drone down, he destroyed their missiles launch systems it was a cyber attack. And so, just when they bombed an air base, I mean, he turned around and smoked Soleimani. So, if we don't get back to that maximum pressure with Iran, then they're just going to continue to metastasize in the region.
It does feel like, with President Biden, the weakness seems to embolden our enemies. And so, for, people who are watching all of this, you look at the president, you look at how feeble he is, you look at the fact that, people are horrified, and they should be, that the president continued to hold this barbecue as this whole situation was unfolding in front of our eyes. Is this, in this moment, do you believe that this, Congressman Mark Green, will unite the Republican Party in a way that will enable the party in the House of Representatives to agree on a speaker so that we can move forward?
I don't think, here's the interesting thing. The War Powers Act gives the president 30 days before he has to come to Congress, to respond to crises. And I'm not supportive of the War Powers Act. I think we've got to do some work on that. Congress declares war. There has to be, some fixes to that law. But the way it's written right now, he has 30 days. So we don't need to rush this speaker decision. We need to go through our process, hear from each of the candidates, and get to 218 votes before we go to the floor, because the debacle that happened in January doesn't need to happen again. Not now. I think that would telegraph negative stuff to the nation. So what we got to do, we've got our hearing tonight where each of the candidates sort of present their stories, and we ask questions of each of the candidates. Tomorrow, I think it's 10 a.m. Eastern, we'll go in and have votes, and hopefully the first thing we'll vote on is the process. Do we just pick a majority person and go to floor and work it out there to get to 218, or do we work it out in the conference? And I say we work it out in the conference. So We'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't think we should rush it, though. If neither of those guys can get to 218, somebody else throws their name in the hat.
There's word out there that Kevin McCarthy is really interesting interview that I watched where, he's not saying that he wants the job back, but he's saying whatever the Republicans want is what I'm willing to, sort of go with. And so he's not saying that he doesn't want it, but he's not saying that he does. He's saying whatever the body wants. They're amongst the Republicans in the House of Representatives. You also have, of course, Jim Jordan. You came out, I believe, and you actually penned an opinion piece in your support of Jim Jordan. Of course, you have Steve Scalise as well. Are you still a Jim Jordan fan?
Oh, yeah, I'm a huge Jim Jordan fan. He's been my mentor since I've been up here. I've known Jim since before I was in Congress, back when I was a state senator going to Freedom Caucus type events. Here's what we need out of the speaker for the next 15 months. We need somebody who can unite the Republicans, and then we need somebody who can take Biden on and paint the Speaker of the House. When we have control of only the House of Representatives, that person is the rankingest elected Republican in the country. So suddenly her mission becomes sharing the vision of America, the Republican vision of America, and winning the White House in 2024. And so, and painting the Democrats' version of America, which is pretty easy to see how terrible that is. And so that guy, I think Jim Jordan would be the best to go around the country. The other thing too is Steve, and I love Steve Scalise. He's been through so much with shooting, and now, he's got cancer. So, and it's all public knowledge. I'm not revealing any secrets there. Chemotherapy. I did chemotherapy, and I would go from chemotherapy over to the House, to the Senate, and vote in committee, and that's really hard. And to be game on day one, I fear more for his health to put him in that role. But I admire the man for wanting to do it. I think it needs to be Jim Jordan.
One last question here. You can't talk about what's going on with Israel and Hamas and terrorism and not think about what's coming across our own southern border.
Right.
We know that there's many of these terrorist nations are saying, well, if America supports Israel, then it's game on in America. As committee chair of the Homeland Security, how worried are you that, some of these folks have already been steadily coming into our country, and who knows what's going to happen?
Well, there's no way for Secretary Mayorkas to give us any assurances that there aren't sleeper cells inside the 1.7 million known gotaways. And then there are the unknown gotaways, right? When the border is completely unpatrolled because they're processing mass waves of migrants at the crossing site. So it's obviously we should be very concerned. We know that ISIS brought some people in, and the FBI is still looking for 9 of those guys. So, look, this president is what he's doing at the southern border, what he's doing in the world, what he's doing in our economy. He's essentially destroying the greatest country in the history of the world from the inside. And we're doing everything we can within the legal bounds of what we can do to get him out of there. Comer's doing his impeachment inquiry. I'm doing my investigation into Mayorkas, and we found some very tantalizing stuff that we're going to run to ground over the next several weeks. And then we'll put a packet together and impeach him. But it's very frustrating. Finding joy these days is kind of tough. I talk to Americans, Tennesseans, and it's just everybody's grieving what's happening to this great country. And hopefully enough Americans, outside our state gets it. But, these blue states some of them are starting to wake up. The liberal vision for America is what San Francisco is today. And that's not where we want to go. That's not our destiny. It's not who we were made to be. I mean, we're a great people and a great country, diverse, amazing. And this liberal vision, which has just poisoned education, poisoned, particularly our cities, we have to defeat them at the polls. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take hard work from every American, but that's what we have to do. And that's why this speaker race is so important.